Today we're going to make this brick texture using Material Maker. Material Maker is a free and open source project made with Godot, and you can download it from their itch.io or GitHub page. Link in the description. When you open the program for the first time, you'll see something like this. If you don't see this for some reason, just click on File, New Material. It's going to make a brand new project for you. In the center, we have something called a static PBR material, which stands for physically based rendering material. We have some different values, and if you change the values, you can see the updated result on the 3D preview. You can hold the middle mouse button to rotate your object, or if you don't have a middle mouse button, you can hold Alt and rotate the object. You can change the object if you want. For example, if you want it to be a cylinder. I'm just going to stick with the default cube. Let's get back to our static PBR. The first value is our albedo, which changes the color. You can set whatever you want. For example, roughness is how rough the material is. If I zoom in, you can see it's like a mirror and it's really reflective. By the way, you can change your environment if you want to see different reflections on your material here. So it basically controls how rough your material looks. The metallic is how metallic your material is. Like if it's a metal, it is now a reflective metal. If you want it to be a rough metal, you can turn up the roughness. And we have something called normal. We'll get to this one. For this brick material, we're just gonna worry about albedo, roughness, and normal. Mostly normal and albedo, because roughness isn't really doing anything to this one. We don't need to worry about these nodes. We'll explain them as we go through each one of them. For now, just know that albedo controls the colors of the material. Roughness is how rough it is. For example, it looks like a wet wall now. And normal is what's defining the bumps and crevices of the material. Like if I change the lighting with holding Shift and right click, you can see how light reflects, and the way the light reacts to the material is like these bricks are actually popping out of the mesh. But in reality, it's just a flat surface. If I disconnect the normal, you see it's just a flat surface. If we connect it back, it's like they're popping out. Alright, enough showcase, let's see how we can make it. One of the first and most important things we should understand is how to control our slider, or how these values actually work. And they are mostly a value between 0 and 1. Let us add our first node. Under simple, we have something called uniform, which is just a simple color. By the way, this is our library and you can add any node you want, or if you don't want to use this, you can just press space and search for what you want, for example, uniform, and it's going to add it for you. Or you can right click and it's the same menu, whatever you prefer. Uniform is just a simple color. One thing we should always keep in mind, let me make it white, and I want to bring the roughness down and metallic up. So it's a really reflective metal. If I connect the uniform to the metallic, nothing happens. But if I bring this value down toward black, it's no more metallic. If I bring it up again, it's fully metallic. By the way, if you want to disconnect a node, you can just hold the output and release it. Or you can hold Control and right click at the same time, your cursor becomes a knife, and cut the connection. I personally prefer to cut the connection. So changing it to black is equivalent to bringing the slider down all the way. And the full value is white. So the most important thing we should always keep in mind that in materials, white means 1 and black means 0, and it applies to all of this. For example, roughness. If I bring it all the way up, let's connect our color to roughness, and if I make it black, it's completely smooth. If I bring it up to white, it's completely rough. And somewhere in the middle is something in the middle. You can really fine-tune every value. For now, just know white is 1, 0 is black. And before we move on, one more thing. In Material Maker, when you connect a node to a static PBR, for example, let's connect it to metallic. And let's bring down the roughness so we can see the metallic effect better. Even if it's connected and it's 1, if you bring down this value, it will have no effect. So essentially this value you provide here, this is a 1 now, because white is 1. It will be multiplied by whatever you provide here as its output. So if it's on 50%, for example, 50% of whatever this is, no matter this is 1 node or 1,000 nodes connected to it, 50% of whatever this is, this input which it gets, will be shown to the final result. If you don't want to worry about this and you want to control the value with your nodes, just keep the slider at 1 and you have the full control on your node. For now, don't worry too much about it, keep them at 1, you can fine tune them later, and let's make some bricks. Let me bring up the roughness. The first thing we want to do is we want to have a brick pattern all over our object. How can we do that? We know how to change the color, but this is just too simple. We don't want a single value all over it. And our uniform node doesn't really help us. So let's delete it for now. We have a lot of nodes to choose from here. You can use a lot of them to achieve the same effect, but the one we want to use for our material is bricks. Who would have guessed? You can add it directly by drag and dropping it from your library or search for it. I'm going to drag it since it's already here. If you click on any node, your 2D preview up here is going to show how it looks. You have a repeat. We have rows. You can extend them, add rows, add columns. I'm just going to keep them at default for now. We have an offset value. We have mortar, bevel, the roundness, and a corner which doesn't do anything for this type of brick. You can also change the type of bricks you want. I'm going to keep it at the default running bound, and you can simply connect the output of this node to the input of the albedo, and it's pretty boring for now, but at least we have something. One more thing, I just like to keep my cube as simple as possible, so I click on this model button, and in the top right you can configure how your object looks. These are the default objects which are available in Material Maker by default, and I just turned down this chamfer, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, down to 0, so it's a perfect cube. For this material you can also use a plane. I prefer the cube. Let's add some color. For the color, I'm going to drag the output of the bricks and it'll automatically open up this menu. You can add a Colorize node. If you don't see it, just search for Colorize. This is by default a gradient between 0 and 1, remember? And with this, we can change how the black values represented. If I change it to red, the black turns into red, and instead of connecting the bricks output to the albedo, I'm going to connect the Colorize output to the albedo, so we get this color. And for the white, you can use whatever you want. Wow. For the mortar, I use a gray value, I don't know, something like this. And for the bricks, I want that orange red default brick look in video games. I think something like this looks good. Doesn't need to be exact. Let's change the mortar to a lighter value. Yeah, something like that. Doesn't really matter. Use whatever color you want, whatever you like. This is already better than what we had, but if you look at the final result, our color is not just simply a uniform value. It has some variance across the surface. So how do we achieve that? We normally use a noise for that, and you can use any noise you want. We have something called a value noise, and I think it's perfect for what we want. How do we add a noise into our bricks? For example, you don't need to follow this. I'm gonna add a checkerboard pattern to show you something really quick. I'm gonna use a value of 1 for X and Y. For example, let's just add this mesh, whatever this is. These grayscale values are just numbers between 0 and 1. So we can do mathematical operations on them. Let me add a math node. And let's put the operation on multiply. If I connect this pattern on one input and this node on the other input, we're gonna have a result like this. And why does this happen? This is because here is our white value, which is 1, and here is 0. When you multiply something by 0, it gets completely removed, no matter what it is. So when you multiply this by this, we get something like this. And if I use a invert node, I know this is a lot of nodes, but everything is a node here, just inverts the colors or the values in our case. And if I connect these one, you can see it just inverts. So we can do something similar like this to combine this noise with these bricks. By the way, there is a blend node, but for the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to use the math. And there's nothing wrong with using the math. There is just a lot of ways to achieve anything in Material Maker. So we have this pattern, and I want to multiply this, make sure it's on multiply, with this noise. And the result is wherever we have white, the noise is going to appear. The noise is just too big. I'm going to put it at like 8 by 8. This is probably too much, but it's fine. And instead of getting the output from our brick texture, we're going to get it from the math. So it is too much. To make it more subtle, we can use the sliders, or we can add another colorize here to understand it better. Why not? What does this colorize do? It is a value between 0 and 1, which means if I bring down this slider to like a 0.5. Now, any value which is greater than 50% will be rendered as fully white. If I bring this down, any value greater than like a 0.35 will be rendered as fully white. And if I change that, you can see it changes. So we can use this actually to make this effect less prominent. And I actually don't want that much contrast. I just want to bring up a little bit of the black values, so it's a bit subtle. I don't want it too much. It is not black, so it won't erase our bricks completely in the dark areas. If I connect it to the math, you can see the effect is there, but it's really subtle. So maybe we should bring up those blacks. It might not seem like a big difference, but these subtle changes actually make big difference. This is without the noise, this is with the noise. It's just a bit more organic. And I think we can go more with the noise, something like, I used 20 before, but I think 16 is gonna be good. And maybe I make the effect a bit more subtle. Again, this is just preference. You can use whatever you want. Now we have all these nodes which just control albedo. It's a good practice to organize your nodes, because if you just keep adding nodes more and more, it's going to become a mess and a headache really soon. You can drag the nodes and hold control to move them on a grid. You can see it's snappy, and I like to group the nodes into sections. These are all the nodes which control albedo, but the brick, we're gonna need it later. So let me put it in the corner. I can hold control to keep them close. You can select a bunch of nodes by dragging over them and use Control Shift F to make a frame for them, so you can move them with just one click every time. By the way, you don't need to memorize these shortcuts. It'll become second nature really soon, but if you forget one of them, you can just press F1 and it'll bring up the user manual. The user manual actually comes with the program. It's such a cool feature. And you can just search for shortcuts. You can click on shortcuts and you have all of the shortcuts. So if you ever need a refresher, they're all here. And you can rename the frames by double clicking on the title. I'm going to use base color. You can reroute any connection by holding shift and right clicking on it. So I know that this one goes to the albedo section. Now it's a bit more organized. You don't have to organize, but it's a good practice. And one more thing which is a good practice is to always save your projects. You can do that by clicking on the file and save, or just Control S, which I prefer to do. You can choose a name for your project. I'm gonna name it Bricks. and hit save. From now on, we can just hit Control S and it'll automatically save it for us on the location we provided. This is so cool, but it's just flat and we don't want that. One of the things which brings life to any material is roughness. As I bring it down, you can see it's like a mirror, which we don't want. Was I working with metallic all the way on? Oh my god. Okay, it's fine. We can just work with that. A more saturated and a little bit darker value for my mortar. Adding a roughness value in our case is probably not that important, but just to make it more realistic, I'm gonna do it. So let's just put this bricks at the roughness and see what happens. So because the mortar values are completely black, it's gonna have 0 roughness, which means it's gonna be fully smooth, and we don't want that. So guess what? We can use a Colorize node, yeah. And for this, really, I just want to have a really rough mortar. And yeah, probably it's not going to be visible. And you can have the mortar more rough or the bricks more rough. Just a little bit of variance, but yeah. And I noticed I forgot something which I did before. Actually, this is a good example to see how powerful procedural materials are. You can change anything you want later on. We have a mortar size, and this is just too perfect. Like, you can see it's just so flat, and in real world, nothing is really that flat. Let's add a, guess what, noise. We have a lot of different noises. I used velvet noise, value noise, but I'm just gonna use a Voronoi noise for this one, and let's connect it to the mortar. And you can see it makes it just a bit random, so it's not that much flat. And if you bring down the intensity, it's gonna make it a bit less, which is good. Yeah, just a little bit of randomness to make it a bit more natural. And remember, if you make this value 0, it's not going to have any effect, no matter how intense or anything it is. I think I'm going to use a value of 6 or maybe 8. And let's change the mortar size so it actually affects it. And I think this is good enough for what we're trying to do. So let's move on to the normal. Let's try to connect the bricks to the normal. This is what defines the little bumps, crevices, and everything, but it doesn't work like this. You see, this is a grayscale value, and to understand why doesn't it work, we should take a look at what normal is. It's a single image, but with 3 different channels, RGB. And each of these channels define first how the light reacts to the material from right to left, like the light is on the right side. Second, top to bottom. And the third one, directly above or in front of the material. So it's like the camera view and the light is directly on top of the material. And with combining these 3 values or channels, the game engine or the 3D software or rendering software, anything can calculate, can calculate how light should react to the material. And this is just a fake effect, so the mesh is not changing, but with those 3 channels, it can calculate how light should affect the material. And that's why we cannot just use a single grayscale value to define normal. Lucky for us, there is a node which automatically does that. Normal map node. And if you use this one, it automatically creates this normal map for us. And now we can connect this one to the normal and see what happens to the material. It's like the bricks are coming out of it. But here the difference between the mortar and the bricks are too much. We can just bring down this value to make the effect less prominent, but I prefer to use a Colorize node since we are really familiar with that now. So I'm just gonna bring up the blacks so the difference is not that much and the normal map affects it a little bit less. I think I want a bit more bevel on this. That looks like more. Interesting. In the final material, I have these little bumps on the bricks and on the mortar and everywhere, and I used the noise value for that. So let's do the same thing here. How can we add a noise to this? So I'm just going to use the raw noise, and let's connect this to a normal map. So now we have two normal maps, one for the bricks and one for the noise. And I think this is a bit too much. So let's bring the value down. This is actually makes it less strong. Whenever you want to combine two normal maps, I mean, you can combine the grayscales before you do the normals, but if you want to combine normal maps, you can use a really handy node for that. Normal blend node. This takes two layers, one background and one layer 1 as it calls it. Use one of your normal maps as background and the other one as layer 1, and it creates it. As I move this opacity slider, it makes it more or less strong. I'm gonna put it at 1 because I changed the value here to a 0.2, around a 0.2. And let's connect this result to the normal map. On our material, we have little bumps. Again, you can hold shift and right click to move your light. You can see the bricks have these little bumps, and we can actually add more bumps. These are not actually bumps, these are crevices. I think they're going down. Little deeps, I guess. Let me bring down the bevel. I think it's too much. Again, you can change anything you want at any stage. A bit more mortar. I have added another layer of noise, and I used the result of this math node from the base color. Let's bring the output of this and use another normal map. Remember, we have to convert our grayscale to normal value. How do we combine this one? Well, you can add another normal map. Let me just hit Ctrl D to duplicate this one and put the output of this and then connect our third layer to it. There is no problem with this, but there's an easier way. The normal blend node has this add layer mode, and you can add another layer. So I can just simply connect this one to it. This is controlling the little deeps on our bricks. As you can remember, we combined this noise with our brick texture. So this is these little deeps. It's too strong. I can change it. You can see the material changes, but I want it to be there and visible. So we have two values now. Let me put this one around 0.3 and 1 for our base layer. And I think this is looking good now. And don't go too much on normal maps. You can see it affects the mortar and the bevel too. Normals are mostly used for little details like scratches, screws on a vent, for example. And that's it for now. Let me combine these with Control Shift F. Well, not combining them, but making a frame for them. And I'm gonna call this normal. This is our material. And the good thing about this is, as you know, this is procedural, so you can change any value you want at any time, and it'll all be calculated in real time. You can change the offset, the mortar, the bevel if you wanted more. However, I don't want it more. You can have more rows, so you have thinner bricks. To export this and use this in your game or your 3D project, you can go to the file, export material. You have a lot of options. You have Blender, GLTF, export with Godot 3 for ORM or standard material. This is actually going to make a resource file which Godot supports. Unity developers know what these means. And Unreal 4 and 5. And you've got a quick export. I believe it just exports the textures for you, so you can set it up later manually in any program. I'm going to use Godot standard to just show you how it looks. I normally make a folder for it, like bricks. Name the material whatever you want. I'm going to use bricks again. And let's see how it looks in Godot. Let me import the bricks here. And the amazing thing which I love about Material Maker is it's all set up. You don't have to do anything. Let me add a mesh instance 3D and use a box, for example. You can drag and drop the material on it and it works. Or you can use the material on the mesh, which is here, and use it as that material. The reason it's stretched right now is because of the UVs. Well, the UVs are a separate topic for a later day. For now, just know that if you click on the material tab of the mesh, you have something called UV1, and you can change it. You have to use integer values for this to work. And I think the default one on Material Maker is 2, the default cube. And let's add the sun to the scene so we can rotate it and have fun with the normal map. I think it's better visible on a cylinder, so let me add another mesh instance 3D and use a cylinder. Move it over. I'll just drag the material on it. Let's change the, so when you drag the material, it's not going to be visible on the mesh. It's actually going to be on the geometry. You can change the UV here, and yeah, it changes the UV for other objects because we're sharing the same material resource. And there you go. You don't have to do any extra work or anything. It'll automatically work. And I just love normal maps. Like, look at this effect. This is just a simple mesh. And the way the light reacts to it is just super amazing. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you want more Material Maker contents, make sure to leave a comment. And if you like normal maps like I do, like the video. And why not subscribe?